guys, I'm Steph and welcome back to my beauty stash. Today we're going to be diving into the brand new Too Faced Cinnamon Swirl eyeshadow palette. This eyeshadow palette launched today. It is Sunday, August 29th when I'm sitting down to film this video, and it launched on the Ulta Beauty website and it retails for $48. Let me give you a peek inside as to what we are getting. This is definitely a neutral palette, guys. So for all of my neutral eyeshadow palette fans out there, this video is definitely going to be for you. This video is also going to be for all of you out there wondering what in the world is Too Faced thinking, giving us identical palettes year after year after year. So I am definitely going to be inserting swatches, not just of this palette, but of other palettes from past fall releases, releases that Too Faced has done the last few years. And we're going to be comparing them to see how they stand up against the Cinnamon Swirl palette for this year. I know a lot of you were a little bit bored, as I will admit, am I, with the color story. I was kind of hoping for something a little more exciting. Even last year's pumpkin spice release, I was more excited than I had been from previous releases. So this has some big shoes to fill, because right now my favorite is definitely pumpkin spice, and I did do a review over that one. I'll have it linked up above in case you want to check that video out. But I will be creating two looks for you guys using the Cinnamon Swirl palette. Of course, I will insert the swatches that I did of this palette outdoors in natural lighting as well as indoors, so you can see what the shades are going to look like on a fair to light skin tone. And I will leave the swatches of the other palettes, comparing it to this one, towards the end of the video. There will definitely be timestamps in this video so you guys can skip around and just look at the parts that are of interest to you. But before I begin, let me just give you some brief details about this palette. It does come in that tin packaging, and of course you do get a mirror up here. You have the little sticker of a cinnamon bun. I keep wanting to call this the Cinnamon Buns palette, but it is Cinnamon Swirl. So forgive me now if I refer to it as the Cinnamon Buns palette. I was referring to it as that earlier. And then of course you have a little write-up in the back. This does say that it is good for... Now I'm not seeing the little open can icon in the back where it says how long this is good for after opening. I do have the pumpkin spice palette right here in front of me, and it has a little open can symbol right here. And this one says it's good for 12 months. I've obviously had it for 12 months and I still use it. It performs fine. But this one is missing that. All it has here is the batch code. And I was even looking on the box that it comes in, and I am not seeing that symbol anywhere. So if I can find out, it's probably 12 months. It has to be 12 months the way the other ones are. But if I can find out, I will leave it in the description box of this video, or I'll have it running down here. So that way you guys can be aware, because I know a lot of you like to know that information. But it is an 18 pan eyeshadow palette. There were a couple other things released in this collection. One of them being the Melted Matte Lipstick. I passed on that one because I have the one from last year, and this one is in the shade Pumpkin Spice. That is what I have on my lips today. And of course, the rest of the makeup that I am using, both on and off camera, will be linked in the description box of this video. Some of those links might be affiliate links, so if you do end up purchasing, I thank you so much for supporting me and my channel. Let's dive in first to swatches, and then I will take you into the two-look tutorial portion of this video, and then I will give you guys my final thoughts, my review, and some dupe recommendations. If you guys want to see the new Too Faced Cinnamon Swirl palette in action, keep on watching. I've already primed my eyelids using the Juvia's Place Eye Prep Eye Prime Eye Primer, and I used the shade 1 in that one. Let's dive into this palette. I really want to work with this bottom row down here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this shade right here. And this shade is called Ready, Set, Bake. And I'm going to be working that in the crease. Now there is some kick up in the pan. That doesn't bother me, but I know you guys want to know that. So I'm just letting you know. And I'm using the Rephr 27 brush. Guys, there is still time, and I think a very limited amount of time to pick up some Rephr brushes that are in the concept store. I believe this might be one of the brushes in there. They have individual brushes as well as brush sets. I recommend going with a brush set just so that you can try out several different brushes. But I will have them linked, as they always are, in the description box of this video. I use Rephr brushes pretty often when I create my eye looks. And I know a lot of you have purchased, and thank you to those who purchase from my affiliate link. It really does help me out a lot. But I know you all have been enjoying them, so that makes me so happy whenever you come back and you tell me, I love it, Steph. Thank you for the recommendation. That means a lot to me. Just by doing that, letting me know that I helped you make a good buying decision, that goes a long way with me. So this shade is really nice. It's blending out really well. I like the shade. It is how it looks in the pan. I don't feel it looks any different. And I'm just kind of packing it on, but look at where I'm holding the brush. I'm holding it down here and I'm going in really lightly, doing back and forth windshield wiper motions as well as circular motions. Not being incredibly precise, just blending. All right, I'm gonna leave it like that. Let's go into another shade. I think I'm gonna go in with this shade next. And this shade is called Food Court. I'm gonna try applying it with my finger. This is kind of like a satin shade. It does have a little bit of a shimmer to it, but I definitely think this is more of like a satin. And I'm gonna place this all over the lid. Yeah, I definitely think this is gonna be one that I'm gonna have to apply with a small brush, maybe even wet the brush. But I just wanted to see what kind of payoff we were gonna get with my finger. But yeah, I'm gonna go in with a brush. I'm using a Rephr 28 and it's dry. I just wanna see how it's going to go on with a dry brush, and then I am gonna be spraying the brush. Well, maybe not. This is a pretty shade. Is it the most pigmented of shades? No, but it is building up fairly well. Just kind of blending it ever so lightly in the crease. All right, so now I'm gonna go back in with the first shade, which was Ready, Set, Bake. And I'm just gonna blend these shades together. Matches my hair. All right, so I like that. So far, we're off to a pretty decent start. I don't know that I want to do, well, I guess, let's go in with the shade that's next door to the Food Court shade. This one is called Sticky Fingers, and I am gonna use my finger to apply that. I'm gonna focus it on the center, and here's what the shade looks like. Just gonna place that right here. Looks nice. I'm gonna use that Rephr 28 and I'm gonna spray the brush. Now this is more of a full-on shimmer shade. It is not a satin shade. It definitely has a little bit of texture to it. And you can see by spraying the brush, definitely got more payoff, more shimmer. That's what I like. Has a little bit of a reflect, maybe like a pink peach reflect. Red reflect. It looks nice. I like the way those two shades look together. Now for the lower lash line, I guess I'm gonna go, let's see. I guess I'm gonna go back in with Ready, Set, Bake, and then I'm gonna probably deepen it up with another shade, and then we'll do something different on the inner corner. So I'm going in with a BK Beauty 207. I'm just gonna run this along the lower lash line, kind of dragging it down a little bit. Now I'm gonna take this shade right here, it's called Cinnamon Swirl, and I'm using a Rephr 03. And I'm gonna focus this really close to the lash line. This is also a matte shade. Now I'm cleaning off my Rephr 03 and I'm gonna go in with this shade right here, and this one is called Sugar Rush. And I am gonna spray the brush. I'm gonna pop this right here on the inner corner. That's a pretty inner corner highlight. I'm actually gonna pick up a little bit of that shade Sugar Rush. Just add a little bit right here. Kind of just tie everything together. Ooh, that looks nice. I think I'm also gonna do a little bit, actually no, I'm gonna pick up the shade, I'm cleaning off this Rephr brush. I'm gonna go in with the very first shade right here. This one is called Flour Power. Flour, F-L-O-U-R, the baking flour. Just gonna do this right in this area. So far, what do you guys think? I didn't have any issues with the shades, so let me do some liner and maybe lashes. We'll see, and then I'll come right back to show you guys the completed look. Alright guys, so this is the completed look number 1 with the brand new Cinnamon Swirl palette. I like the way it came out. What do you guys think? Definitely a more pink fuchsia type of vibe. Maybe not necessarily what you would think of if you thought of cinnamon rolls, but you guys know I love colorful makeup. Obviously I love color, look at my hair, and I really liked creating this look. I thought it was fairly simple to create this look as well. The lashes that I popped on are the House of Lashes in the style Juliette, and there's what the other one looks like. These are my favorite style in House of Lashes, and then second of course would be the Iconic lashes. And then for eyeliner on both the upper lash line and the lower waterline, I went in with one of the latest from Natasha Denona. This is from her mini Xenon collection, and this one is in the shade Burgundy. So now let's jump over to the left eye and start creating look number 2. Okay, so I think I need to do something more warm tone, something a little bit more brown, something that looks like a cinnamon roll, right? So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in with See Me Rollin' right here. I'm going to start working that in the crease. And I'm using a Rephr 16 to blend this shade out. Now this is definitely a shade that I think of when I think of cinnamon rolls. I hope you all like cinnamon rolls. I do, just don't get to eat them very often. Now, I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but of course I'm gonna mention it again during my review. But I opened this palette after I purchased it at Ulta. I opened it in my car just to make sure like it wasn't broken or anything like that. And the minute that I took it out of the box, I could already smell the cinnamon scent. But right now, as I'm applying the shadows, I don't smell it at all. And I have the palette open here in front of me. It's only if you get really up close that you can smell it. And I feel like the other palettes had more of a scent than this one does. So don't feel like that cinnamon scent will be a little too spicy for your eye area. I know some of you might have been wondering about that, just because I know fragrance can be very irritating, not just to the skin, but to the eyes as well, especially those of us with bad allergies, which I definitely have seasonal allergies. But I've never had an issue with fragrance like irritating my skin or irritating my eyes or anything like that. So I can't smell it as I'm applying it, but just know that when you open it up for the first time, yeah, you're likely gonna get a whiff of that cinnamon scent, but it is something that dissipates. Now we gotta do something different. I think what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go down here to Batter Up, and I'm gonna do, let's do a little halo eye. So I'm gonna focus that on the inner and outer portion of the eye. And let's start working with that. Now I'm using a Rephr 13. I'm just gonna start building this up out here. A little bit in the crease as well. This brush is the perfect size for doing halo eyes because it lets you be very precise with your placement. And you're gonna see right now when I get into the inner corner, like it's just the perfect little blending brush size for that inner corner work. Just a good little brush in general, good little worker brush. That's blending out really well. That's a good pigment on the shade. That's what I've noticed, guys, so far about the matte shades. They're pretty decent. Now I'm gonna go in right here. Now I'm gonna go back in with See Me Rollin', which was the first shade. I'm gonna focus it out here. Just kind of lightly blend it up here as well. Looks good. We got a pretty decent blend out of both of those shades. Really nice smoky eye. All right, so far so good. I think this is definitely along the cinnamon bun lines. I think I'm gonna go in with, let's go in with sticky buns up here. I'm gonna start with my finger. And that's what the shade looks like. Focusing that right in the center. Now I'm going to spray the brush and I'm going to go in with a Morphe M124. This is definitely fall vibes right here, like all these shades together. Now what I want to do is the way I did on this eye where I added a lighter shimmer shade to the center of the lid. I'm going to do the same with this eye. So I think I'm going to go in with, this one down here. This one is called Gooey Goodness. And that's what the shade looks like. Just right here. Now I'm gonna go back in with Batter Up, which was this brown shade. I'm just gonna blend out the edges where I put the shimmer. Now for the lower lash line, I think I'm gonna do a shimmer lower lash line, and I'm gonna go in with this shade right here. This one is called I'm Toasted. And I'm taking this on a damp Rephr 26 brush. This is another brush that I would definitely add to your stash. This is just one of those all-around brushes that can do so many different things. It just comes in handy. And it's not as small as the 03. The one I was using for the inner corner. It's a little bit bigger, so you can definitely blend with it and just place shadow in larger areas, but more precisely. So far, I haven't gotten any fallout. Not bad. I'm just gonna add a little bit of Batter Up right there. I always forget, like I miss this little area, corner of my eye, and it's always just on this eye. Now for the inner corner, I'm gonna go in with Frost Those Buns. Spraying that shade, I'm using a Rephr 03. I like it. Definitely fall vibes. I'm gonna add the other lash and some liner, and I will be right back to show you all the completed look number 2. Alright guys, so look number 2 is complete. I added the other Juliette House of Lashes lash, and I went in with some brown liquid liner from Flower Beauty. This is the Forever Wear Wing Liner, and the shade is called Dark and Stormy. It's just a dark brown. And then for my lower waterline, I picked up a new shade in the NYX Epic Wear eyeliners. These are some of my favorite eyeliners, and you can kind of see I swatched the shade a little bit on the back of my hand. This one is called Orange Zest, and this is the look. This is the look. I feel like I just created this look in a recent video, and I can't remember what palette I used, but I know I created a similar look like this not too long ago. So let me give you guys my final thoughts on the Cinnamon Swirl palette, and then I'm going to take you through Dupes alternative swatches of previous Too Faced fall palette releases, and we'll determine whether you need this in your stash or not. Alright guys, so let me first start with the packaging of the palette. I think it's cute. I keep wanting to call it the Cinnamon Buns palette, but this is the Cinnamon Swirl palette. This is the Fall 2021 palette from Too Faced. Again, tin packaging. You do get a mirror, and you do get 18 very neutral shades. I mean, thank goodness for that fun pop of fuchsia at the bottom. That is what is saving this palette, in my opinion, color story wise. Okay. Now let's talk about the performance of the palette. The performance of the palette was just fine. It was actually pretty decent. I didn't encounter any issues with fallout, with blendability, with pigmentation. I especially think the matte shades are better than the shimmer shades as far as more bang for your buck, but I don't think the shimmer shades fall short either. They're definitely pigmented. They do work better when you spray them with a brush, and overall, it's a pretty decent palette. I don't have anything negative to say about the quality of the shadows. Yes, there is a little bit of kick up in the pan. I didn't experience any fallout even when working with the shimmer shades. It's a pretty decent performing palette. I really think this is the same formula as the one from last year, the Pumpkin Spice palette, and I think this is a better formula than the 2 palettes before it. So if you liked the Pumpkin Spice palette, if you are happy with the quality, the performance of this palette, then I think if you decide to pick this one up, you're gonna be very happy with it. Now let me go over what I don't like about this palette. And I have the box, so I'm just gonna hold it up like this to cover the mirror. This is not my color story. You guys know I love colorful makeup. That's why I said, thank goodness for this shade right here. Like, thank goodness for these shades right here, because this was definitely, you know, my color inspo. That's why I created the first eye look using those shades. I have all of these shades already, guys. This is not something that's unique color story wise. I was really expecting something a little bit different. Yes, I knew it was going to be a neutral palette, but I didn't think it was going to be this neutral and this similar in shades. I definitely feel there are shades Too Faced could have left out, starting with this shade right here, because this shade has been the first shade in the other 2 palettes that I have from their fall releases. And you'll see that when I get to the swatches. Also, I feel some of these shimmers are just way too similar to each other. Like, I definitely would have liked to have seen maybe a matte purple in here as well. Maybe even a really deep dark brown, although this one does go deep, but not incredibly deep. So I definitely wanted more of a range as far as shades go. Yes, it is a cohesive palette, but in my opinion, it is a very boring color story for somebody like me who enjoys playing with color. Now, I know not everybody likes playing with color, and that's fine. That's why we have neutral palettes. But I also feel you guys have all of these shades already. I really don't think, unless this is gonna be your first time buying a Too Faced fall palette, you know, I think you can pass on this one. I don't feel like it's something you absolutely need in your stash just because you already have it in your stash in some way, shape, or form. It just missed the mark for me color story wise, but if you do end up picking it up, know that you are getting a decent performing palette. It's not going to disappoint you quality wise. Now, as far as the scent goes, I have this palette right here next to my face. I don't smell anything. The only time I really got a good whiff of it was when I initially took it out of the box and opened it in my car. Other than that, I haven't really been able to smell that cinnamon scent, which is actually a good thing, especially because this is an eyeshadow palette and a cinnamon scent next to your eyes might not always be the greatest of ideas. But color story wise, it gets a thumbs down for me. Performance wise, it definitely gets a thumbs up. All right, now let's talk about comparisons, dupes. What do you already have in your stash that looks like this cinnamon swirl, cinnamon roll, cinnamon swirl, cinnamon buns eyeshadow palette? I'm gonna show you the swatches of the cinnamon swirl palette next to last year's pumpkin spice palette. We have cinnamon swirl at the top. We have pumpkin spice at the bottom. You definitely see the similarities, but what I like about pumpkin spice, this one down here, is this little area over here. This, to me, reminded me a lot of spring. I like that there was a little bit of green leaning tones in there. And I guess that's why I gravitate more towards the pumpkin spice, the color story, versus this year's cinnamon swirl. I actually think that of all these fall palettes I have from Too Faced, this one has been my favorite so far. This one is the pumpkin spice. I don't know if they are gonna release pumpkin spice again. They might, because I know they've released gingerbread and gingerbread spice again. So if they do end up releasing pumpkin spice, I would most definitely pick it up over the cinnamon swirl palette. And you'll notice again, the first two shades, guys, they're that same little bone matte shade that we definitely have 1,000 times over in our eyeshadow palettes. I do feel that they both contain a nice mixture of mattes and shimmers, but it's gonna be up to you whether you feel you are lacking these cinnamon swirl palette shades. Now, I know that not all the shades are spot on. They're not. There's very, very few that were an identical match, if any. If anything, it was just mainly this first shade. The other shades were just very similar to where they would be nice complements to each other, but I can absolutely with 100% certainty tell you that if you're wearing the pumpkin spice palette and tell people you're wearing the cinnamon swirl palette, they're gonna believe you because just looking at them is so very similar. Now, I didn't pick up one of the other palettes, and it was the Gingerbread Extra Spicy eyeshadow palette. I'll put a picture of it right here. I think this is the one that had the blue shade. I'm trying to remember, and I'm gonna insert this picture later when I'm editing, but I didn't pick this up because I felt I had the shades already in other palettes. It just wasn't speaking to me, so I opted out of that. But I did pick up the palette before it, which is this one right here, and this is the Gingerbread Spice palette. So this one was released in 2018. Let me show you what this color story looks like. Again, we have those same fall shades, the exact same mixture of like matte and shimmer shades. Now let me insert the swatches of this Gingerbread Spice, comparing it to the Cinnamon Swirl. And here they are, one on top of each other. We have Cinnamon Swirl at the bottom and Gingerbread Spice at the top. Definitely very similar. I mean, I tell you guys, if you tell people that you're wearing the Cinnamon Swirl palette, but you're really wearing the Gingerbread Spice palette, they're gonna believe you. They're gonna believe you. They're not gonna know, just because these are so similar. I really wish Too Faced would have given us something a little bit different. There's definitely other things besides baked goods that they could have used to theme the palette with. And while not all the shades in the Gingerbread Spice palette match identically with the Cinnamon Swirl palette, they're definitely just way too similar. Way too similar. Now, maybe you have this Gingerbread Spice and you're thinking, you know what, it's getting old, I don't really want to use it anymore. You want to pick up the Cinnamon Swirl, then by all means. I think that the Cinnamon Swirl is definitely a better quality than the Gingerbread. I do think they've improved their quality over time, because this Gingerbread palette has a shade. It's kind of like a, I don't want to say it's a pressed glitter, but it's a very textured shade, and it's this one right here, and that one just gave me crazy fallout with zero pigmentation. It was way more trouble than what it was worth. Again, it's going to be up to you guys on what you want to spend your money on, but this is 2018 and this one is 2021. Not much has changed. Now, I also pulled out two other non-Too Faced palettes that you might have in your stash that you might also want to consider in case you're still on the fence about buying the Cinnamon Swirl. This is the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette. I think you can still find this available. You might even be able to find it on sale, but let me hold it up against the Cinnamon Swirl palette. There you go. So you can see how similar they are. Yes, the Naked Heat does not have that fuchsia or those pink leaning shades, but it definitely has everything else. Everything else, they're both around the same price as well. I think the Urban Decay might be a little more expensive, and you do get a brush versus the Too Faced. You don't get a brush with it, but don't let that be the deciding factor. But if you already have Naked Heat, you don't need Too Faced Cinnamon Swirl. And then finally, I wanted to pull out my Wild Heart palette from Wet n Wild. I reviewed this palette a few weeks ago, and I was so shocked, so blown away by the quality, by just the overall performance of this palette. This palette retails for $19.99, although I do think some of you have told me you've seen it for like $16.99 and $17.99 at Walmart, in store at Walmart. I ordered mine directly from the Ulta Beauty website, and I do know that this is, or should be, in stock on the Wet n Wild Beauty website, so I'll have it linked to a couple places. I recommend 1000% checking this palette out because you get a lot of shades. I know it's a bulky packaging, it's a lot larger palette, maybe a bit more difficult to store than the Too Faced palette would be, but it's a very flat, a very narrow palette. So really it would just fit fine on a shelf, or even on the side of the shelf, the bottom of the shelf. I think you can make it work. I would recommend trying to make it work because this is a pretty decent palette. Let me hold up the Cinnamon Swirl palette, and there you can see how similar they are. Like, you definitely don't need this one if you can grab this one, and I would definitely recommend the Wet n Wild over the Too Faced any day. Alright guys, so that wraps up today's video showcasing the new Too Faced Cinnamon Swirl palette. Definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I know some of you are already bored with this palette before it even came out. Some of you, though, are excited about this palette, and I don't want to diminish your excitement or your boredom by any means. I'm just sharing my opinion, my thoughts with you guys, but at the end of the day, it is your opinion that counts because it is your money that's going to be spent. I want to thank you guys so much for watching another one of my videos. You all have a great day or night wherever it is you all are at. Stay hydrated, guys. Drink your water. Cheers. And I will see you all very soon. Bye.